Alright, hey everybody, welcome back. It's Matt here. I think today we're going to be doing a video I've been trying to get out here for quite some time. I want to talk through all of the technical details of my simulator and see if I can answer some questions that some people out there may have if you're trying to build a simulator similar to what I have. So the plan for the video today, I'm going to just walk through how I boot up my own simulator and the process that I walk through to get everything fired up so that I'm ready to fly. And then once we'll do a quick little flight, and then after that we'll land and I'll talk you through all the technical details. So okay, so we're sitting on the ground here in New Haven in the simulator. We're in the cockpit, cold and dark. So the first thing I do here, so what I did not do on camera was put the yoke here, put the pedals down, put the throttle quadrant in place, and set up all my cameras. So other than that, this is what I would be doing from the point I turn the computer on to the time we start flying. So we got Flight Simulator booted up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Avionics, which is our moving map app. We're going to do that on the phone. In order for you to see what I'm doing there, I'm going to, this is kind of a technicality because I'm streaming, but I'm going to launch something called Let's View. I'm going to do that on my computer as well. So I launch Let's View on the computer, and I launch Let's View on my phone. And that allows me to connect my phone to the computer so that you guys can see my screen. I'm going to put this over here. So let me find that. Sometimes this thing doesn't want to play nice. So this is what I'm trying to... there we go. Okay. So now you guys can see my phone in the top right hand corner. So on my phone, I'm going to open up the Avionics external I/O module, and I'm going to start listening. So what this is doing is, this is now my moving map app on my phone, Avionics. It's listening for our GPS data. Now I have it configured in the app where it's not going to use my phone's GPS like I would be doing in the cockpit of a real aircraft. Instead, it's going to be listening over my home Wi-Fi network for my simulator GPS location. So we need to start broadcasting that. And the way we do that is... so unfortunately, you can't see it on my main monitor here, but you can see it on the small monitors down here. So I have an icon for X-Connect. So I'm going to click that, and that just launches the X-Connect plugin. And now immediately on my phone, you see it's picking up the GPS data. So the simulator is letting Avionics know that in the simulator we're sitting on the ground in New Haven. So that's the I/O module plugin. Now I'm going to launch the Avionics app itself. And if I zoom in, you can see, yes, we are there on the ground at New Haven. I can also open up, so if I pull up HVN, so here's our parking diagram, and it shows us sitting here on the west ramp. So so that's the first step, is being able to see where we're going on a moving map. In real life, this is what I do for navigation. I use my phone as my moving app, and I mount it to the yoke. So I want to be training on the simulator like I fly in real life, and that's why I go through that step right there. Next thing I'm going to do is, so we have these nice touchscreen panels here, The reason I have those is because when we're flying in the simulator, I don't want to be looking at a big pillar here, and I don't want half of my scenery to be taken up by the cockpit. So I switched to this view. That way we're looking at nothing but scenery outside. It just helps with the realism of the cockpit. So from there, I'm going to launch on Air Manager. So again, I have all these saved down to my taskbar, so I'm going to click on Air Manager icon. So this is on Air Manager. It already, in the process of booting up, it launched our, so you can see here it says it's connected to Flight Simulator 2020. It does say there's an update available. I'm not going to do that right this second. Now, for whatever reason, sometimes when you disconnect and reconnect monitors, it messes with how the display shows up. So right here it's using a custom position. I want it to center on the display. So I'm just going to reselect. Now I chose the wrong one. Here's the right one. So that's good. Now I'm also going to choose this Moby Flight 2, and I'm going to want that one to launch on display number 1. So I launch that. Okay, so now our instrument panel is up, and that's all touchscreen, so we can press buttons to flip switches, or we can do it here on our Honeycomb Alpha. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to want to pop out our panels, our glass panels, and put them down here on our instrument monitor. I think you guys are able to see. Yeah, so in the left side of the screen, you're looking at my frame rate right now. So we're jumping around it, so anywhere between 35 and 39 frames per second. And you can see we're kind of jumping between limited by CPU and limited by GPU. So you can tell in terms of bottlenecking, we're pretty close to just about even right there. As soon as I pop out these glass panels, you're going to see that story changes, and you're going to see my frame rate drop from 35 down to something not quite so favorable. So I'm going to change our view here so that we're looking down at our panels. And at this point, so before I put these panels in place, I think I'm going to start up the aircraft. The only reason I want to start it up is because if I don't, and I'm taking too long to do this on battery, there's a chance my battery dies on me. You know what? I think we're going to use this as an example to show how quickly we can do this. So let's not fire up the aircraft, and let's see if we can get those panels put in place before the battery dies on us. So we're not going to use the checklist today. We're going to kind of wing it. We wouldn't be doing that in real life, but we'll do it for the sake of expediting the video. So take our masters on, and then we'll take our avionics on. That boots that stuff up, and we will turn on our transponder on into standby. So at this point, I'll hold down the right Alt, and I'll pop out each monitor. Continuing to hold down right Alt, I'm popping out all 4 of them. And you can see they all pop up over here. So now I can start popping them all out. Wrong button. This guy. Popping them all out individually and getting them out of the way. This guy. Okay, so now they're all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab. So we have the autopilot here. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to hold down Shift. And what you see on my screens is you see all of those, they call them fancy zones, pop up. So I'm going to move this guy. Actually, I'm going to let go of Shift, and I'm going to move him down to a different monitor. It won't let me cross monitors while holding Shift. I'm going to right-click on this guy and take him off of always on top. That way I can move this stuff around. So again, I'm going to grab him, hold down Shift, and place him over the correct fancy zone for him. And he's going to automatically resize himself and drop right into place. Do the same thing with, this is our transponder, so I'll grab him, hold down left Shift, drop him over the fancy zone, and he sizes himself right up. Do the same thing with the 430, hold down Shift, drop him over there, and the 530. hold down shift, drop him in place. Now I can click the panel, he comes on top, I'll right click, always on top. And now our instrument panel is all set up. It took us no time at all to resize those panels. It's the one and done when you're setting up the fancy zones. The app is called Power Toys. It's a Microsoft Windows add-on. The one time you set up those fancy zones, that's the only time you need to mess with resizing these panels, and other than that you can just drop them and they pop right into place. So we're good there. Let's and the only reason we're on the in this cockpit view was to pop them out and drag them away. So now I think we can go back to our scenery view, and I don't think we need to come back inside the cockpit and use our mouse for pretty much the rest of this flight. So we'll see if that's the case or not. Alright, so we're getting ready to start the aircraft. We'll turn on our beacon. We'll turn on our fuel pump. We're going to have to, I'll pop out my fuel panel here. Why is he not popping out? I don't know. Oh, there he goes. Being sensitive. So I'll change this fuel valve. We're on both for fuel. So we have fuel. We'll go full rich with the mixture. So we have air. We'll crack the throttle. And let's introduce some spark. So we're clear around the aircraft. Coming on.
New Haven ground, Cessna, November 452
Looks like we already have. Oh, that
Cessna,
damn
November
thing.
4523 November pushback request accepted.
Please do not push me back ever again. I hate that.
New Haven ground, Cessna, November 4523 November requesting the end of pushback.
Stop managing.
Cessna,
And
November
stop doing anything
4523
else.
November request to end pushback received.
Okay, so where are we at now? So we have our GPS running. We have our panels all set up and running. You know, there's one more thing. I'm looking at this panel here, and I can kind of still see the background of my Windows desktop behind it, and I'm realizing I forgot to launch. So there's a second Air Manager panel that I launch on this display just to create a black background, so that, because this is a transparent overlay, that's how you're able to see the popped out panels behind it. So I'm going to want to launch the gray panel. So if I bring this over here, you can see I have Cessna gray panel, which it's literally just a gray panel. So I'm going to launch that, and now you can see it comes up here on my monitor. So as soon as we're back in the monitor, back in the simulator, all of our popped out windows come back into place. So let's so we're running here. I think we have the brakes set. We do. We're not going anywhere. We got 1,000 RPM. We're looking good there. We'll look at our pressures, temperatures. We're all in the green. Vacuum pressure, amps look good. So steady state there. So let's check ATIS. I'm going to test one more thing. I'm going to pop my flaps down just to make sure that the gauge is moved, make sure everything's connected to the simulator the way it's supposed to be. And yeah, you can see the flaps come down, and my flap notch there comes down as well. I'll put them back up. That just tells me that both of these panels are properly connected to the sim and there's no glitches going on. So let's go ahead and tune up ATIS on 13365 here at New Haven. So I'm going to touch so both of these monitors are touchscreens, so you can touch any knob and then use the Knobster here to control whatever knob you selected. So I'm going to touch the radio there, and we're going to tune in 13365 using the Knobster. And I think you can already see how much nicer this is than using the mouse and having to zoom in on the cockpit, zoom in on the radios. Using the mouse is slow, the scroll wheel's slow. You get super distracted from the flight, and you get so focused on, you know, operating a computer that it breaks the realism. So we got 13365 in there. Let's tune it in the primary. Information
Wind
kilo.
285 at 7. Visibility 7. Sky condition, few clouds at 1,100 feet. Temperature 15. Dew point 13. Altimeter 29.902.
29092.
20 in use.
Runway
Landing
20.
and departing runway 20. DSR aircraft, say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller, on initial contact, you have kilo.
Kilo. Alright, we'll get rid of that. And we'll tune up the tower on
Airport information kilo 20000.
124.
Wind 285 at 7.
Not entirely sure why that's still going.
Sky condition, few clouds at 1,100 feet.
So we'll just call that a simulatorism,
Dew point 13.
and we'll put tower in there and be done with it. Okay, so we have tower up in the primary. Actually, we're going to tune up ground first. So we have 1217, which is ground in the primary, and we have 1248 in the standby. So that's ground and tower. Let's take our transponders on VFR. We're going to put it on alt mode there. Our autopilot, will leave that alone. Okay, let's take a look around us in the aircraft here. And I'm going to say we're good to do our run up here. So we do have the parking brake set. We'll verify that as I'm coming up on the throttle. Make sure we're not moving anywhere. We look good there. So we're on the brakes. We're at 2,000 RPM. The pressures, temperatures in the green. Vacuum pressure and amps look good. EGT looks good. Fuel flow looks good. We're going to go to the left. We get a small drop in engine RPM. We're going to go to the right. Small drop in engine RPM. And the engine continues to operate smooth. Back to both. RPM comes back up. We don't have carb heat installed in this aircraft. We'll chop the throttle. And we want to make sure that the engine doesn't quit on us at idle. That looks good, and we'll bring it right back up to 1,000 RPM. I will bump my flaps accidentally while my hand is there. Alright, we'll call that 1,000, and we'll say that that's a good check. So we're good to start moving here. I'm going to turn all our lights on: landing light, taxi light, nav, and strobes. And we will call ground and let them know we're ready to taxi for runway 20. We're going to be flying to... actually, I can put that in here. So I'm going to go to our planning page here, and I'm going to do a search for KHVN. New Haven, add that, and I'm going to do a search for shoot, what's it called? Is it 42 Bravo? Good speed, that's the one. So that's our flight plan. We're going to go back to the map. Actually, we'll activate a flight plan back to the map, and you can see it's just a quick 2-minute hop. Just for the sake of giving us something to do where we need to tune up some radios in flight. It's a quick hop, so it doesn't give us lots of time to tune up our radios. So that'll just, illustrate how helpful it is to not have to constantly be moving back in and out of the cockpit. So, and actually, I'll mention it now since it just caught my eye. You can see our frame rate now with all these panels popped out is at 26, 27. One of the things I noticed is that when you pop out 2 panels, it drops down to this 26, 27 based on where I started at, 35. So I'm getting about a 10 FPS drop. When I pop out the 3rd and 4th panel, the autopilot and the transponder, I don't notice any additional drop in FPS. So that's something that's interesting. My guess is because they're not drawn very precisely like the Garmin panels are, so it probably isn't taking as much compute power. And you can tell now, okay, so we're limited by GPU according to this. So I guess our GPU is bottlenecking at this point, which I'm surprised to see. I'll bet you when we start moving that won't be the case. But okay, so we have our direction of flight in there. We're going to be departing to the west, So let's set that in there. So runway heading is 20. So I'll put 20 in there. And that is a westerly direction, so direction of takeoff, it'll be a slight turn on course. Let's okay, let's make a call. Have ground in there. New Haven ground, Cessna 4523 November is on the west ramp. Like to taxi to runway 20 for takeoff. Departure to the west with Kilo. Still working on my radio calls. I've gotten rusty. So now that we practiced the radio call, let's have the simulator do it for us. Clearance. Oh, looks like I used the mouse, huh? Now there is a way to do this using buttons, so from now on I'm going to leave the mouse alone and do it that way. So we want to depart to the west is button 7.
New Haven ground, Cessna November 452 November ready to taxi departure to the west with Lima. Cessna November 452 November taxi to and hold short of runway 20 using taxiway Delta. Contact tower on 124.8 when ready.
We're going to taxi to runway and hold short 20 via Delta. Cessna 4523 November.
Taxi to and hold short runway 20 using taxiway Delta Cessna 23 November.
Okay, so I think we're going to come off the brakes, start coming forward, do a quick brake check. Brakes look good, and we'll continue forward. Ignore that guy because he's not supposed to be there anyways. This looks like a taxiway here. So I just got these Logitech pedals in the Logitech throttle quadrant. And so far I'm a big fan. My only complaint with the pedals is there's a detent in the middle of it that I don't like the feel of, but somebody just gave me a helpful tip, a coworker of mine who also is on simulators. He let me know, oh, I'm supposed to be holding short here. So we just busted our clearance there. Alright, we're going to let them know that we're holding short. We'll pretend that's what we're actually doing. Tune up tower. Okay, so tower is 1248. That's in our standby. We'll put that in there. And we'll make the call. Tower Cessna 4523 November, holding short runway 20, ready for takeoff.
New Haven Tower Cessna November 4523 November at runway 20 ready for takeoff west departure. Cessna November 4523 November cleared for takeoff runway 20 departure to the west approved.
Cleared for takeoff 4523 November.
Cleared for takeoff runway 20 Cessna 23 November.
Standard brief, we get a nice long runway here. If we have anything happen to us that prevents us from taking off by the halfway point down the runway, we'll hit the brakes. If we have a failure below 200 feet or below 700, we'll put it right back down. Alright, full throttle. Above 700, we'll turn back to the runway here. So takeoff, trim is set, flaps, we have no flaps. Fuel pump is on. Airspeed's alive, 2350 in the green. Transmission or engine pressure, temperature, we're looking good. Rotating. And we're off. So we're going to trim for 70. And our track is to the left.
November, continue for west departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
Alright, on course.
New Haven Tower Cessna November 4523 November, continue for west departure.
Oh, except I'm turning east. Oh, I requested west. That was a mistake of mine. I should have requested east. We're flying east. Let's see if I can change that instead of pissing him off. I'll skip making the call in the real life. I'll just do it in the simulator. I don't know what it's having me do here. I still haven't figured out the communications in the simulator, because if I'm communicating, I'm usually doing it on the pilotage network. So, okay, so we have 15 minutes en route here. I'm going to call 1,500 good enough, so we'll start speeding up on course. We can even use the autopilot. So, where's our heading bug? Let's put this heading bug where it belongs. And actually, we're almost on our flight path anyways. It looks like they already tuned up our navigation stuff in the GPS for us here. So we could, if we hit the autopilot, it's probably going to turn us left to intercept the course. So I'm going to do that, but then I'm going to quickly tell it to use heading mode instead. We're going to look for a 071. That's just about what we have. I have it in vertical speed mode, so it's going to hold us right here at 1,600. And we'll start getting ourselves ready. So we're still in New Haven's Delta, so we won't do anything with the radios yet. We'll just hold what we got. So we're off the ground. We're looking at 28, 29 frames per second. Limited by GPU still. So taking a look at our route of flight here. So again, we got 8 minutes en route. We're going to be crossing through Chester's airspace, so we can we could tune them up, or we'll just.
Cessna 2-3 November, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
All right.
New Haven Tower, Cessna November 452 November, frequency change.
So we don't have to tune up Chestnut. I'm just going to steer clear of it. I'll stay outside of it within 3 miles or so. Just because Goodspeed is right on the back side of it, we don't have enough time to switch from one frequency to the next. Just for the sake of doing the practice, since Goodspeed doesn't, you know, assuming we're on a long flight here and we need to get weather coming into our destination, there's no weather at Goodspeed, but there's weather at Chester, so I'm going to tune up 118325. So hit our radio button there, 118. .325, and we'll put that in primary.
Kilo Sierra November Charlie, automated weather observation 2100 Zulu. Wind 285 at 7. Visibility 7. Sky condition, few clouds at 700 feet. Temperature 14C dew point, 13C altimeter 29902. Kilo Sierra November Charlie, automated weather observation 2100
Okay, I'm good with that. 122.8 is Goodspeed's CTAF. Put that in there. And you know what we could also do? On our backup, let's put in Chester. That's 122.725. 122.725. That way we're monitoring Chester, but we're talking to Goodspeed. We got 2 radios. It's easy enough to tune them with our touchscreen panel in the Knobster, so let's use them. We've got 6 minutes to go. I'm going to start veering left just let me see. We're going to be landing to the west, so I guess I'll hold what I got. If anything, we'll come right just a bit. We'll fly the coast, we'll make it scenic. Yeah, I'm changing my mind. For the sake of making it a quick video, we're just going to overfly Chester. We're monitoring it, we know if anybody's there. You know what? We're even going to make a call to see if anybody's on the ground or in the airspace there. So, pretending that I think there's an issue in Flight Simulator with, like, you can't transmit on number 2 on Pilot Edge or something like that, but since we're not on the network, we'll practice. So we'll go into transmit on COM 2 and I'll make a call. We'll get ourselves moving in the right direction again. Chester traffic, Cessna 4523 November, approximately 11 miles to the southwest, inbound, overflying the airspace, requesting traffic advisories, Chester. I should be giving my altitude as well, but I forgot. If this was a real flight, we could start a fuel timer. Since we're leveled out in cruise flight, we could turn our fuel pump off, and we could lean our mixture. Too much. Wow, it's really hit or miss there with the mixture. I'm gonna bring the throttle back for cruise. So we didn't hear anything from anybody at Chester, so we're gonna say there's nobody there. We're gonna transmit on number 1 again. We'll continue to monitor number 2. We got 4 minutes to go inbound. So I will definitely say that as much as it was a huge pain in the butt doing the research and working through troubleshooting issues, trying to figure out how to get these 5 panels to all work together, my 3 scenery models and the 3 scenery monitors and the 2 instrument monitors. But now that it's all working and all the kinks are worked out, I think it's absolutely fantastic. As I said, the only time we touched this mouse this entire flight was to, you know, pull up some flight simulatorism type stuff. Other than that, we haven't needed to touch the mouse, and to me that's absolutely fantastic. You turn your buttons and switches on and off through the touch screen. You're touching the panel just like you would be in the real aircraft. I have a drone. I have my controller for the drone camera mounted right here on the yoke if I wanted to fly the drone around and do a pause. To me, I have everything, you know, right handy right here, and I think that's huge for training value and simulating the way you would be flying it in real life. I'll make one more courtesy call to Chester. We'll come to Chester traffic, Cessna 4523 November, approximately 1 mile to the west, overflying the airport at 1,600 Chester. Still not hearing anybody. We'll transmit on number 1 again. And we can start turning towards good speed. So we'll call this our before landing checklist. So we'll turn the fuel pump on. We'll go full rich on the mixture. And our gumps check. The undercarriage is fixed in this aircraft. Mixture is full rich. Pump is on. I'm trying to remember what the G in gumps is. Trim looks good. Flaps are good for where we are. Alright, I'm going to bring the autopilot off. Actually, I think I can do that with my button here on the yoke. So autopilot's off. Can start a descent, so power is coming back. And we're 3 miles from Goodspeed. We'll give them a call on... Huh, did this change? Yeah, 122.8. Chester traffic, Cessna 4523 November. Approximately 3 miles to the south. Inbound for landing, runway 28 Chester. Or, wow, that was awful. What do they have for a runway? I don't want Chester though. It's, what did I put into this? Goodspeed. Wow, we are getting thrown for a loop here. Throttle's continuing to come back. We're trimming to slow back. Runway 32. Alright. Goodspeed traffic, Cessna 4523 November. 1 mile, final landing runway 23. We're at 1000 Goodspeed. Okay, note to self, we're going to work on that because that was awful calls. And I'm trying to remember if Goodspeed, I'd have to look at the approach plate again, but in the real world, I think I'd be taking a closer look. I'm trying to remember if we're allowed to land this direction. Let's continue to slow back. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to look at that fast enough. Alright, we need to get to 80 so that we can throw some flaps down. Let's go full flaps. We definitely have it made. At this point, we want to make sure we're not too fast and too high. So we're already high, so I'm going to kick it into a slip. Let's see if we can get slowed way back. To make this landing. I think we got it made for sure. Alright, we're down. Get on the brakes without completely burning them out. We're paying for these brake pads. We don't want to go through them. Okay, let's clean up the aircraft. Turn off the taxiway here. We're looking for 1,000 RPM again. We don't want to following our plugs. The bring her inner dude is bringing her inner. So we're gonna turn around here. We're gonna hit our right brake and pivot around that. Gonna give it some throttle. Whoops. Pivot around that brake. Alright, we'll hit the brakes. And I think we're gonna leave it right there. So let's throw on the parking brake. And we're gonna power down and then we'll talk about the setup. So let's bring the transponder to off. We're going to take our fuel pump off. We're going to take all our lights off except for the beacon. We'll take the avionics off and then we'll go with the mixture. I hate that too. Continue. Take our master switch, or our mags off, and then the master switches. Okay, and we'll hop out, and there's actually a restaurant right there. So this is part of the airport, but there's a parking lot here, and if you walk across, can I? Yeah, so up the hill here is a restaurant that overlooks the water and the bridge here. So this is a nice spot. Let's go have a burger. So let's switch over then to our discussion about what we have for a setup here. So I will include the link for this Google Doc in the description below for anybody who wants to open this document up, go through my itemized list of what everything in this system costs, what what you're going to need to buy if you're looking to do this exact setup, and then at the bottom it talks through. There's useful links to get all of the software integrating and talking to each other nicely. So the first link here, I have it pulled up here already, but that's our PC part picker. So that talks through everything that we have on the PC itself. So we have a Ryzen 9 5900X. That's selling for $550 retail. I paid $750 for it because you can't get computer parts these days. And to me, the extra $200 was worth it to see if I could get. Of course, with 5 monitors, we're really putting a load on this system, so I was really struggling in the frame rate category. You see right now with what I have, we were working 28, 27 frames per second. I was curious to see. So I was getting a lot of switching back and forth between limited by GPU and limited by CPU, so I was curious to see if bumping up our CPU. I had a 3700X, now I'm working with the 5900X. I didn't see too much of a difference. It certainly wasn't worth the $750, but at least I now have the peace of mind that I'm not leaving frames on the table. So I guess the next step would be to upgrade from a 3800X to a 3900X, but there's no way that's happening. So I think this is the final machine that I'm keeping. So what I have cooling that CPU is this EK all-in-one cooler. It's a 240 millimeter, 2 fans. And actually, while I'm talking through this, oh bummer, I don't know when our map timed out, our moving map. So sorry that you didn't get to see that if it timed out before our landing. So anyhow, I'm gonna open this up. So this is the computer I built that you're looking at here. So the Ryzen 9 is sitting under the water pump there. So here's the water block right there. Over on this side is our 2 fans. Those are the 240 millimeter fans. And you can see the hoses going over to the water block. We have an Asus Tough Gaming 550. Can I bring this over? I don't know if this is more helpful to put this over here. Yeah, so our motherboard is an Asus Tough Gaming B550M Plus with Wi-Fi, although I decided not to use. I got the Wi-Fi because, why not? But I am running Ethernet over to it just because I don't even want to, tease the idea of having Wi-Fi be my limiting factor in terms of downloading the scenery data. So I have, so these are 2 sticks of 8 gigs, so 16 each, number 1 and number 2. So I'm running 32 gigs of Team Group T-Force Delta memory. I'm running them at 3200 megahertz. We have a solid state Intel 1 terabyte M2 NVMe solid state drive. We're running the Asus GeForce RTX 3080 Tough Gaming. The only reason I was able to get my hands on that is because I ordered the overclocked version. I think a lot of people out there ordered the non-overclocked version thinking they could just overclock it themselves for free rather than paying the additional $30. And I think that resulted in there being a lot less demand for this version of the card, so I think I just got super lucky there. I still waited 5 months for it to show up, but I do have one, which I'm fortunate We're running everything in a Cooler Master Q300L micro ATX chassis, and we're powering it with a Gigabyte 750 watt 80 plus gold power supply. I do have a sound card in there. That's because in the process of streaming everything, wanting to do these streams, I was really fighting my microphone setup and just getting the audio to work properly. And what gave me, so come to find out, the issue I was having wasn't so much. So I was using USB sound adapters to improve my microphone audio, but my USB adapters kept failing and all my USB devices kept failing. So I was thinking, well, maybe I'm overloading my USB bus, and come to find out that was an AMD Ryzen 5000 motherboard issue that they're supposed to be fixing. I think they might have fixed it already. Maybe I have a BIOS update waiting for me. You can research all that stuff. Ryzen 5000 USB issues, motherboard. Come to find, so right now the temporary fix I'm doing is all of my Gen 4 PCIe slots are manually overridden into Gen 3 mode instead of Gen 4. So I'm sacrificing maybe a little bit of speed for the sake of all of my USB devices not simultaneously disconnecting, and that every time those USB devices would disconnect, it would freeze the simulator and crash the PC to the desktop. So anyways, I ended up sticking with the sound card because once I installed it to try to resolve these issues, I heard what the sound quality sounded like and I couldn't give it up. So I still have the sound card. And you can see that right above the you can see that right there above the GPU. So here's our fans, all of those white fans you're looking at. So I at one point I had 6 of them in there, and then I removed 2 of them and replaced them with the 2 fans that came with the liquid cooler. So I also included the 2 monitors. So I only included 2 of the monitors here. Really, I guess, and that's because I had this 24-inch monitor already here. So I guess if you didn't have any monitors and you wanted 3 matching monitors, you'd have to add 1 more monitor to this price model. Then I added, these aren't the exact webcams I have. I'm using some Amazon clones, but I added them in here just for getting the price. So essentially, with what I was able to find for parts on PC Part Picker, this is kind of the ballpark of what you're looking at to build this PC. Around that just under $3,000 price point. So if I jump back to our part builder, so some of the stuff that I didn't mention, sleeve extensions for keeping the cabling all neat here, nice white colored ones to add to the aesthetic of the PC. You could save $40 if you didn't want to have a nicer looking PC, but I sprung for it. I do have an RGB LED strip down at the bottom. I could change the camera angle so you could see it, but you can trust me that it's there. We talked about the monitors. So this was the HOTAS, hands-on throttle and stick. This is before I saw the Honeycomb Alpha flight yoke. I figured I could try to get away with something that was half decent, pretty accurate, had a good feel, but wasn't going to break the bank. I went for this, and then as I continued to build upon the system and as I was making it more realistic, I decided, you know what, I'm going to put this thing on the shelf and go with the Honeycomb Alpha instead. Actually, I'm going to turn off this FPS counter. HDMI cables, and then I have HDMI cable switches so that you press a button and it'll switch so that I'm not constantly plugging in. So I'm running this simulator at my normal office desk, workstation, work from home workstation. So these monitors, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I'm working on them. I don't want to be unplugging HDMI cables every single time. I just don't want to wear out the cables or potentially wear out the the computer HDMI connectors themselves. So instead of over using those connectors, I installed these switches. So you just press a button and it switches the monitor over. So that's what those are. GPU brace, just because it's a big heavy GPU and I wanted some extra support to hold it in place. This is my V-Moda boom mic that I'm talking to you on here. It plugs into the headphones. Pretty cheap solution, and it sounds half decent, so I was okay with that. These are my noise canceling headphones I'm wearing right now. Another cheapo Amazon product, but I think it works just fine, and I recommend it, and especially with a sound card driving it, it sounds great. Wireless game joystick, that's the fake Xbox controller I have here for operating the drone camera. This is one of my webcams. This is the 1080 60 frames per second camera. That's what you're looking at with me right in front of me. We have a Releno 1080p 30 frames per second. That's the one back here that you're looking at the scenery with. And then 30 frames per second, 1080p, that's the one that's looking at the computer right now. This guy. Headphone splitter. So that's so that if I want to fly with a co-pilot, I can. I have another set of headphones and another boom microphone. Actually, I think, yeah. So I only listed those once. I already had another set of over-ear headphones, but I listed the microphone twice. So I got two microphones. So we're set up so that if I want to fly with a co-pilot, both microphones, both headphones can plug into the PC at once, so that we can talk to each other and we can both be heard over the stream. We can both hear what's going on. USB audio adapter. Actually, I don't think I'm using that anymore. I think that's in the drawer because we used the sound card instead. USB-C monitor extend touch. So these are our touchscreen panels here. I listed them twice because you got number 1 and number 2. So $220 for each of them. Display port to HDMI adapter. So that is our external. Let me see, $10. What is that? Display port to HDMI. Oh, that's so my GPU, the 3080, has more display port outputs than it does HDMI, and I have HDMI cables, so I used adapters for the GPU. Suction mount, that's this guy here. Actually, I'll bring this over here. So this is how I'm operating the Knobster. So the Knobster, I mounted it to this magnetic plate so that, like I said, when I'm trying to work during the day 9 to 5, the magnetic plate just comes right off, and then I can just move it out of the way and it lives right there. But this suction cup always stays right there. It's not really in my way, so I just leave it right there. But this is one that you would mount like a Garmin to, or a cell phone mount in your car. So it's just suction cup mounts to the desk. I don't have a glass desktop. It's just a wood panel top to the desk, and it suctions just fine. So that works just great. So when I'm ready to fly the simulator, I stick the Knobster there. The push button works just fine. You can see that the suction cup mount doesn't go anywhere, and works great. Let's see if I could put this back. USB-C cables. I don't even know what I'm using those for, but apparently I picked some up at some point. USB 3.0 hub. That I have the yoke, the Honeycomb Alpha yoke, which is USB. I have the pedals, which are USB. I have the throttle quadrant USB. Each of these touchscreen monitors, the touchscreen is USB, so that's 5 devices right there. The Knobster is a 6th USB device. What else am I forgetting? USB devices. Mouse and keyboard USB devices. The cameras, right? So mouse and keyboard, I'll call that 1 because I'm using a hub there. Mouse and keyboard are 2 more USB, the 3 cameras are 3 more. So I'll stop counting there, but I'm at 10 devices now, so you can see why you need USB hubs. StarTech USB 3.0 to HDMI adapter. So that's it'll do 4K at 30 frames per Interesting. Now I'm thinking about it as I'm talking about it. I wonder if that could be causing my frame limitations at 30 frames per second here. The fact that this adapter maxes out at 30 FPS. And I'll have to look at what these touchscreen panels can do as well if they do more than 30 FPS. But even if they do more than 30 FPS, this might be my bottleneck. That's something I'm going to have to take a look at. Honeycomb Alpha Yoke. That's this guy. I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of videos on that. I absolutely love it, just like everybody else. You also see the Bravo throttle quadrant, even though I'm kind of pulling a fast one on you here. Let's see, camera issues. So I have the Logitech one sitting there. Even though I ordered the Bravo, I'm fighting the same supply chain issues as everybody else. So yeah, I can't wait till it comes in. It's going to be a great addition to the simulator, but I got sick of waiting and got sick of using my mouse for the mixture. It sounds ridiculous. Probably wasn't worth the $65, but I wanted a realistic simulator, so I sprung for it. So that's the Bravo. So then we have the Logitech. Just talked about that. We got the Logitech rudder pedals down below. Let me see. Oh, there they are. So those, as I mentioned, I like them so far, but there's a detent in the middle that I don't like the feel of. I'm going to have to get rid of that from what I mentioned earlier. I have a coworker of mine who said that you can get rid of that detent. Just look up this YouTube I went and looked it up on YouTube, and there's a video that talks about the detent removal modification. So I'm going to do that pretty soon here. The Knobster for Air Manager. So that we talked about the Knobster. Air Manager. These two panels are running Air Manager software. So that's a software license that costs $70. It's a unlimited use license. Unlimited use in terms of time. I think you can only install it on so many computers. Then I also have an Air Manager career mode software license. That's a 6-month license. I bought that. That was a $30 for 6 months. That just gives you something to do in the simulator, so you're not booting it up and trying to decide where am I going to fly today. You could have a career mode and you can do different missions. And I think I've posted a video on that in the past. And at some point when I finish doing my Pilot Edge missions, I'm going to jump back on Air Manager and use that for my missions. Here's the price of the simulator itself. I went with the deluxe version because I wanted the 6-pack gauges in the Cessna. And then the Pilot Edge software license. So that's a 1-year license for the Los Angeles region. It's more expensive if you also want to do the entire West Coast, but I figured Los Angeles is plenty for now. So tally all of that up, and this is what we're looking at for a price. It's not cheap for sure, but I invested it. I built this simulator as a flight training expense, flight training investment. So you figure renting an aircraft costs $150 an hour. So this simulator pays for itself off in less than 40 hours of flight time. So you figure, most pilots go and get their fixed wing, their PPL, and it takes them anywhere between 40 and 80 hours, and it costs them, 2 to 3 times this minimum. So to me, this hardware this flight simulator is going to be, I could keep this hardware exactly the way it is for 10 years and continue flying the simulator for 10 years. So far I've flown way more than this 37 hours. I think I've well gotten the training out of this simulator that I was looking to get. So to me, the investment is worth it. It makes me a safer pilot in the real life, and if I'm flying with friends and family, knowing that I'm a safer pilot, that is well worth the expense of building this simulator. And additionally, once I do start flying again, which I'm hoping to start doing soon now that we're coming to the end of the pandemic, my plan for the simulator is to make it primarily an IFR training platform. So I'll be booting up Pilot Edge and doing all of my IFR training on there. So In the real world, I don't really have a reason to maintain IFR proficiency other than the fact that, the number one cause of aircraft accidents in general aviation is losing control of the aircraft, and a lot of times that's because you pop into the clouds and can't get yourself out of it because you're not a IFR proficient pilot. So to me, having a platform where for free, once the initial investment is paid for, now for free I can walk into my office, plug everything in, boot it up, and do some IFR training so that if I do ever pop into the clouds in the real life, I have the skills to navigate my way out of it safely. Okay, so here's our design references. So we have the 5 monitor setup, triple monitor scenery, 2 monitors running Air Manager instrument panels. We have the Knobster, and then I made a note here that it requires either a second GPU, which I tried for a while and that did not work out so well. The two GPUs just don't play nicely with each other. So instead I'm using this external USB GPU. And the reason you need that is, or some of you may not need it, but with my RTX 3080, there's only 4 video feeds out of that GPU. So there's 5 connectors out, but you can only use 4 of them at any one time. As soon as you plug in a 5th, one of those 4 that already had a monitor plugged into it is going to automatically disconnect. Okay, so getting into this stuff, our moving map is Avera. I talked through that, and you saw how that worked when we flew out here. I talked through the external I/O module. You can download that in the Play Store. The Avera you can download in the Play Store. Do I have "and" here? I don't know. Maybe XCon? I don't know what I clearly got distracted. The instrument panel is Air Manager. The Knobster is our radio knob. We have a radio stack via MobiFlight. That was the new addition as of last week. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Live ATC via Pilot Edge. Career mode via On Air Manager. And we have some 3D printed parts for when both to mount this drone control Xbox controller to our yoke, and for when our Honeycomb Bravo shows up. I have, actually I'll pull them out here now. I got the, where's the camera? This is the trim wheel that goes on the trim wheel. And then these are the chunky throttles that go over the throttle on the Honeycomb. That way you have nice thick throttles like you would have in the real aircraft. Hold on, I'm going to mute for a minute. Say hi to my fiance. All right, and I'm back. She just got home from work. So I'll talk more about those 3D parts in a minute here. And then down here, I haven't tried this yet, but this is something I discovered last week as well, and it looks pretty awesome. So we're going to take a look at that. That's Seasons and Trees. All right, so I'm going to scroll this way just a little bit. Whoa. Okay, so the Avera tutorials. Actually, I think I have all these links up. So when I was trying to get Avera working in communicating to the simulator, the GPS location, all that stuff, that took me a lot of time of trying to figure that out, and that was a huge pain. But there's a Reddit post talking about it. This guy, Casual B58. This guy's a lifesaver if you want to use Avera, because he was the pioneer who first figured out how to get it working. And yeah, it's fantastic. I would hate to be flying the simulator without my moving map, because I use the moving map in the real aircraft. You want to train the way you fly in the real world, so this is kind of a important piece of the puzzle to have. So being able to pull up your your taxi diagrams, have all your comm frequencies right there, load in your flight plan, have the moving map. You can pull up IFR sectionals if you want to. To me, it's just you can't. It's the 21st century. You can't fly without a moving map. Why would you? So to not have one in the simulator is a bummer. So if you click the link, I have it pulled up here. This is what it pulls up. So this is the tutorial for connecting a VAR. The only issue I had with these instructions he gave is the port number that I used. I think I used 8080 for the port number or something. I can include that in the spreadsheet. I don't want to open it up now, my settings, because I don't want it showing off my IP address, but I will include that in the spreadsheet just so that if you want to know a port number that worked for me, you can give that a try. And then there's this tutorial as well. So I guess this first link is discussing trying to get it working, and he was first alerting the crowd that he did get it working. Second link is the actual tutorial here of how to get it working. Okay, so moving on, Air Manager. So there's a link for the beta. The beta is the one that supports Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Version 4.0 isn't actually released yet, but when it is released, here's the link for it. I don't know if you have to have version 3.0 installed in order to operate the beta, so I don't know if you can use the beta for free. That's something you can look into and let me know if that works or not. So the Knobster is a Sim Innovations and Russ Barlow piece of hardware. So Russ Barlow, he was big inspiration for my entire setup here. He's the one who showed me that touch panel monitors like this could be incorporated for as quote unquote easily as it can get in terms of setting up a home cockpit like this. So what I like about the touchscreens is you can monitor any cockpit. You know, if you were doing a cockpit strictly in hardware, whatever hardware you get, that's what you're stuck with, versus when you have these touch panels. Here I have the 530 and the 430 and the Bendix King transponder and autopilot, but if I wanted to fly a heavy, I just load up the panel in software and it's going to look the way it's supposed to look instead of, something that's fixed in hardware. So that to me is awesome with adding realism as well. So that's one of the reasons I really like Air Manager. The other reason is, every single device you want to buy to build your own cockpit, it's like $250 device versus you buy the two monitors and it's, each monitor is less than $250. So for less than $500, I'm able to get a fully functioning Garmin suite. If I wanted to pull up the G1000s, that would be fully functioning. That's stuff if you wanted to do that in hardware, you're talking a lot more than $500. So there's my sales pitch for Air Manager and Knobster. So for a while, and if you watched any of my previous videos, the radio stack wasn't working. So I had the left panel working, but all my radios, I could hit the button and it would highlight it. I could turn the Knobster and you'd see the knob turning on the panel, but if you compare that to the cockpit in the simulator, it wasn't actually communicating between the Air Manager panel and the cockpit. So this guy, Drunk Billy Flies, this YouTube channel link right here.
Your indicator is off on the annunciator.
This is the guy who broke the news to me over YouTube that this was possible to get these radios working. So I'm going to call this thing life-changing, the fact that we can now operate these panels touchscreen and with the Knobster. So thanks, Drunk Billy Flies. That's huge. Thank you very much. Yeah, awesome. So I was direct messaging him in his YouTube chat section, and he pointed me to this forum for the flight simulator, which is where the instructions are. So here you have, so it calls it full G1000, but here's the instructions of how to install MobiFlight, run it, and get it all set up and working with Air Manager. So yeah, you have the link if you want to get that running. I think it was pretty self-explanatory, and I think I was up and running pretty easy there. So yeah, thanks again, Drunk Billy Flies, and thank you, MobiFlight. So MobiFlight is an open source community that's producing that software. Just absolutely huge. It's so awesome that there's software developers that have the skills and the passion to put that sort of freeware out there for us to use. It's fantastic. So thank you to those guys. Additional software add-ons. So you've seen in my last videos, I've been on the Pilot Edge network. In some of my last videos, I've been on that Air Manager career mode. This is the Screencast app that I said I'm using. I don't have great things to say about this Screencast app. As you saw in the flight we just did today, it timed out at some point halfway through the flight, and you're following along on my moving map. I'm not looking at what's broadcasting 100% of the time or what's recording. So at some point it times out. I don't realize it, so I don't start it back up again. So this is a payware app, and the free version, I don't know if it's 20 minutes and then it times out or what, but it works, but it times out. So you got to stay on top of it. But that's only an issue if you're streaming like I am and you want people to see what you're looking at. In terms of, of Air and that X Connect, if all I'm looking to do is use my cell phone as a moving map, it's still working just fine. I'm not having any issues there. Cameras. It's just screencasting it back to my computer for the stream. So I don't think most of you will be doing that anyhow, so you probably won't worry about it. So these 3D printed parts, this is something to me that's so cool. I don't have a 3D printer. I'm an electrical engineer full time, so I took it as a hobby project of mine to start putting one together from purchased hardware. But it is by no means something that's capable of producing this quality of a flight simulator part. So I'm appreciative for the 3D printer people out there that you can send them your design files and they'll just send you the goods. So this guy, I found him on eBay, High Saturn Collectibles. He was super awesome to work with. Actually, so the story there, so the design files are adapted from this YouTube video by Peter Lenoir.
The long
That's this here.
print with just a support under there, snaps off pretty clean.
So that's what it's going to look like on the honeycomb.
If you want to use these, the angle on the arm is actually about 52 degrees. I was able to print it with no support right here.
So, yeah, again, I think that's fantastic, just for adding more realism for not a whole lot of money. It's nice to put your hands on a thick throttle. It just makes it feel more like the real aircraft. And then again, having a trim wheel go over the trim wheel there, just to add thickness and make it, you get that tactile feel. To me, it's awesome. So let me see if I can pull the better camera over here. So yeah, this trim wheel here is pretty awesome. I don't have my Honeycomb Bravo in yet, but as soon as I get it in, this thing is going on. Quality seems absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I'm very happy with how my printer guy did. And then these throttles look absolutely fantastic. So I know my lighting's not great here, but I'll do more videos on these when my Bravo shows up as well. But again, super happy with the quality of them. They don't seem flimsy at all. They seem nice and strong. So once my Bravo shows up, I can talk more about fitment of the holes here and how they fit over the levers. But yeah, that'll be a future video once my stuff shows up. And actually, while I'm moving the camera around, I'm going to show you one more thing down here that I haven't talked about yet, but one more piece of hardware. So under the chair, I have, can you see it or no? Oh, where is it? There it is. So under the chair, I have a butt kicker. So this is a, some of you may know what this is. This is a transducer that transfers your audio signal coming out of the computer that's picking up all of the engine vibration noise and the sound of the sound of the landing gear coming down, you taxiing down the runway. On the desk over there behind my checklist is the amplifier that powers that thing, but the amplifier plus the transducer together I think are like $160 or something like that. So that's another item that you certainly don't need it for a realistic flight simulator, but if you add it, just having the vibration under your butt of everything the aircraft is doing, it adds to the immersion, and I like it. I'm happy I got it. Okay, so continuing along. So I was talking about the 3D printed parts. This is the guy. This is his Etsy. So you can see he's got the PA-28 throttle handles. This is the trim wheel I got, and this is the Xbox yoke mount that I got from him. So here's the Beechcraft. These are the two that I got. Actually, he didn't. So the story here is he didn't even have these listed on his. So I picked the stuff up from him on eBay. So he has an eBay and he has an Etsy account. So on eBay, he's High Saturn Collectibles. Here's the link. On Etsy, he's I Dig Stuff. Here's the other link. So when I wanted to pick up some of these 3D parts, I saw he had the PA-28 one, and I sent him an email on eBay and asked him. Let me see. I'm not telling the story in a very coherent manner. So this Peter Lanoy guy. Oh yeah, I did show you his video here. So this guy, so he put out the YouTube video and he open sourced the design files and said, here's the files if anybody wants to print this stuff on their own. So thank you, Peter Lanoy, for putting out the design files, because that's also awesome. You know, anybody who's adding open source information out there for the community, I thank you. It's awesome to be able to have this information at our fingertips and to be able to get our hands on that sort of stuff. It's just awesome. So so this guy, I asked him, I said, I see that you have the PA-28 handle. I have these design files that this guy posted. I think he includes the design files. Yeah, so here's his link to the design files. So I sent this guy the link and said, is there any chance you can print these guys for me instead of printing this guy? So he emailed me back. He was absolutely awesome about it. He said, yeah, I've had other people ask me similar questions. He said, I'm working on a design right now. He said, it's not exactly what that Peter Lanoy guy has, but he said, I'm working on something. I could send you those instead of the PA-28 if you prefer. So so we did that. Guy was absolutely awesome. Like I said, the parts look absolutely fantastic. Oh, it looks like these are... I don't know. Yeah, so I'm very happy with how they came out. Definitely recommend this guy. And if I find that there's more 3D printer parts that I'm looking for, this is awesome. If I find that there's more 3D printer parts in the future that I'm looking for, I'll absolutely use this guy again. So highly recommend him for anybody looking to add those 3D printer parts. And if you don't have a 3D printer and you just want somebody that has one, you want to be able to send them the design files, I can recommend this guy. What else? So seasons in trees. So this is another cool thing that I discovered recently. So I haven't installed it yet. I can't give you a true review on it yet, but just watching the guy's YouTube channel, it looks pretty fantastic. Right? So those so he's showing Japan. So instead of having all the typical trees you're used to seeing in Microsoft Flight Simulator, now he's got, I don't know if it's 50 different types of trees. You can go see his webpage. But I just think that's awesome as well. He shows flying around Florida. You got palm trees, and he shows flying in the Rockies. You got these yellow trees, and let me see. I just think it's super cool. There we go. There's the palm trees in the tropics. So he's got the different. So those are the different types of trees, but then he's got fall colors as well. The reds and yellows. I want to do that part again. Yeah, so the yellow, it just looks absolutely awesome. I can't wait to give that a try. He shows the performance impact of doing this sort of stuff. Just wild. Like, look at that. It's nuts. Anyways, so I plan on adding this add-in pretty soon. I think he's got a store here as well. Let me see. So I think it's like 17 euros, 20 bucks or something. Yeah, 18 euros, 20 bucks. So if you're in the camp I'm in where it's gotten realistic enough and you've already spent this much money, what's $20 more? As terrible as that sounds, that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. So yeah, every 20 bucks here, 20 bucks there, but it all adds to the realism, and it's a good time. So I'll be adding that, and I'll do some videos with that, and you guys will be able to see what that looks like. So you'll know if you want to add that. So other than that, I'm looking around and trying to think if there's anything else in my system that I'm not thinking about right here. I think that's it. So again, I will leave the link to this Google Doc in the description, and yeah, so you'll be able to open that up, go and find these parts if you're trying to build a PC similar to what I have. You got all these links if you're trying to integrate these different software packages. So again, big thank you to anybody who's oh, you know who I didn't show. I talked about it a little bit. So this guy Russ. I started talking about it and I lost my train of thought. So the Knobster is by Sim Innovations and Russ Barlow. So here's Russ's YouTube channel. Whoa. Not so fast, computer.
If you've followed my videos in the past, you know that I've had an interest in touch control. I spent 35 years as a pilot in the airlines, and before that I was a military pilot.
Speeding you up, Russ.
Aviation. So when I took up simming as a hobby, I was very interested in trying to make things as realistic as possible. Allow me to.
So he gets into he gets into his Knobster. So the story behind this guy is this guy actually designed the Knobster. He took an Arduino and a rotary encoder with a push button. He put them together, got the software working. Then he reached out to Air Manager and asked them if they would integrate that hardware, hook into software so that anybody could either 3D print or build their own or buy one and have an easy enough software integration. So I think he's got a video out there saying that he had to beg Air Manager to do it, but eventually they did. And I will say thank you to Russ for designing that Knobster, because it is huge. It's absolutely awesome in terms of adding realism, to be able to touch your knob and then rotate it just like you would in the cockpit to operate those radios. That 5-minute flight that we took to get to good speed, if we tried to do that having to zoom in on the cockpit and screw around with the radios with your mouse, it slows you down. It breaks your concentration. You get stuck behind the aircraft because you're hyper focused. You're inside the cockpit, not looking outside at traffic. It's just bad practice all around. So Russ, thank you very much, and thank you Air Manager for giving in to Russ and adding it to your platform, because for somebody like me who just purchased the hardware and got to click a button and all of a sudden it's working, that's just absolutely awesome. So yeah, thank you everybody who's producing hardware and software for this platform, and everybody who's producing information out there that allows somebody like me to go and YouTube around, Google around, and get stuff working with a little bit of research. Yeah, the community around Microsoft Flight Simulator is already growing like crazy and is already doing a great job sharing information. So thank you, everybody. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for joining me on this video. It's an hour and a half now. I appreciate you spending an hour and a half with me. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you guys have fun building up your systems, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.